We're live now. How about that? It's fun. Always fun to sit down with you on Sunday, and we'll wait for people to get in the room. But this weekend was a big weekend for my family. People came from all over. It's our big Zerlango Christmas, and we make all the special lasagnas, and we do the 7 fish kind of celebration. So yeah. So it was kind of getting into the season, eating too much cookies, drinking too much wine, and then I woke up this morning. And I don't know if you caught it, but Michael Cohen wrote a really great article about, Michael Cohen, the fixer for Donald Trump, wrote a really good column today that really kind of spoke to how I felt, like how I'm not sleeping well because I'm really thinking about people being detained, people that are silenced in these detention, concentration camp type places. And how in the heck do you balance, the holiday season or life in general with what's going on right now with ICE? And Michael Cohen's story just really, really hit home for me. It was called ICE Kills 30 in Custody. He said the cruelty isn't only the arrest, it's what happens after, when the doors close, when people disappear. And it's chilling. So they're reporting over 30 deaths in custody. Detention, there's about 65 to 66,000 in detention, but we don't even really know their names. So yeah, so when we talk, what do you want? When I wanted to talk to you tonight, it was really about everything is political. You can't
Yeah,
escape.
yeah. So I'm really excited to talk to you. I'm really happy to see some of my family and friends joining us tonight. So that's pretty fabulous. So
Wait,
welcome.
Willie's there. I see Willie. Hey,
You
Willie.
see, Willie.
I
So
do.
I see my friend Ed. I see lots of folks that we know. So I'm really excited about that. But I want to welcome everyone to the Armchair Pundits tonight. We're so happy to be here with you this evening at 7 o'clock. Catherine has to get to the airport, so we're going to be done right at 7:30, right,
Right.
Catherine?
I got to
Okay,
fry up
perfect.
with the reindeer and the cookies. Yeah.
So yeah, your whole idea around what's happening with ICE is really important, and I'm glad that we're having this conversation. Everything is political, and I know we'll get back to that, but I just wanted to sort of tell you where I was thinking about everything being political. It's like I was thinking of I got this thing, and folks who see my Facebook would have seen it. It was a 4-year, reminder. You know how they do that
Oh
thing.
yeah.
4 years ago, you posted this. And 4 years ago, I posted this thing. It said CT60, CTC 60. And what it was change the conversation for 60 seconds. And the goal was for everybody to get more comfortable changing the conversation, talking about something political that was affecting our lives. And so that's why I wanted to talk tonight about everything is political so that we can sort of think about the fact that even though we don't sort of think about politics as the center of our lives, we might not center it into everything, but it is everything. And how do we go about having these conversations and understanding that in this moment, the importance of
Yeah.
politics?
No, it is, because I think when we talk about this time of year and we talked about heading into holidays, and like I said, so much celebration, so much people, and some people with a diverse views, like in the rooms, and you want to have this kind of joy about the moment. And we always try to balance this, but it's the most best time, actually important time, is to capture people in this moment where they are thinking about, like, oh, families together. This is what we're celebrating. It's whatever this Christmas season is to you, or if you don't celebrate Christmas, it's Hanukkah. It's being with family. There's different kind of traditions around it. Secular traditions still involve getting around people. So it is the time to punch around and talk. And I love the idea. Oh, the acronym. We got to get a T-shirt that says that. T-shirt that says it. But 60 seconds to interject it. So last night I did that in a conversation with my nephew, and he was telling me about how you doing? Boys at that age in their 20s don't talk so much. How you doing in your job? And he's like, yeah, we got this $400 million contract. We're going to be doing like nuclear energy. And we're doing okay. We're doing okay because Doge cuts haven't impacted us. And I was quiet for a second. I said, well, how do you like you're doing okay, but other people aren't doing okay? And how can we actually be okay if the whole if our society, if we're not free, or we're not free to have freedom of speech, and we're all, but your job's okay. And then I got to thinking about, like, everything is political, right? And he got a little uncomfortable with me, but it was because I think when the system's kinda working for you, you don't wanna shake it up. Like, when people say to you, "I don't talk politics," or when you knock doors and somebody says, I don't, I don't vote, I don't talk politics," you're like, "'Cause you're comfortable." And
Mhm.
job is to make Christmas uncomfortable.
Well, I don't so
I
so
don't mean
so
it that
so
way, but yeah, I do, right?
you do. I think what it is that, people are like, "I'm trying to celebrate, I'm trying to have a good time, blah, blah, blah."
Right.
But I think that we're in a moment that for most of us, we have never seen or felt before.
Right.
And for those folks who are not paying attention, or at least we think they're not paying attention, it may be that their job is at risk, or they can't do that. But there are certain things you can say. For example, in my mind, there should not have been a single Facebook post, a single Instagram, a single anything that didn't say, I am so saddened by the death of Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle. I'm so saddened about yet another school shooting, because what that does is it makes everyone alert that we're all thinking and paying attention to what is happening. And you can say that without it being a political statement that puts you at risk, but it does let people know that you are paying attention to what is happening in the country and the world around us. And I think that it is important for every single person to do that. We have to start meeting the chaos with chaos.
Oh, with chaos. So what does that look like when you say meeting it with chaos?
So so
Yeah.
what I mean is that I think it's very deliberate, all the things that happen, and I think it's very deliberate, all of the things that they do. For example, I know this is digressing from our topic, but the whole thing with the Kennedy Center this
Oh,
weekend.
Kennedy
Okay,
Center.
I just got to tell you, it just wrecked on my nerves. But what I decided is that, quite frankly, for someone to be that weak and impotent, you should just laugh about it. You should laugh about it, and you should post about how ridiculous it is. And
Right,
then what happens is that doesn't get to be the topic anymore. What gets to be the topic is that we're laughing about someone who's so ridiculous. And so I think that we have to have this opportunity to not let any of that stuff get away, and that people who are supporters or non-voters or who haven't paid attention, that we are putting it in their face back what kinds of things are happening, and that we're paying attention and we're not frightened. We're just looking at you and saying, you're
this guy.
ridiculous.
Well, I
Yeah.
have to say, so I don't know if anybody in the room saw what I saw, but it was they made that little fake vote where they said the board voted for this, and by the next day they were putting up the sign, the Trump admitted Donald Trump, uh, and John F. Kennedy Memorial Building. I mean, it's, like, ridiculous, but it was captured on the news, a guy walking his dog and just stood there and went like, "What the hell is happening?" Like, I don't know if you caught that, but I think it caught a lot of people's minds because it was sorta like how we all felt, like we're just waking up, walking our dog, minding the business, walk by, and here they're putting up this ridiculous sign, and the guy was like, "Where is Congress? Where is the senators? Where's the people?" He said, "100 people should be sitting here at like, should be showing up right now." And of course, again, I think we all agree that yes, it is super ridiculous. But I think we also have to call it out is that we can't stop paying attention. And I think because so much is happening, that they're changing the name on the peace building. He has his banner hanging everywhere. It's a lot to keep track of. But I really appreciated this guy. He was just like, what the heck, and calling it out. And, I think too, this is because it is so ridiculous, when you talk to just people about it is the good 60-second conversation because it's one of those, it's not so sensitive, but it could open up conversations like, is this right? This is really disgusting. Here's an assassinated president, and this is Donald Trump putting his finger on everything, you know?
So so let me say this,
Go
because
ahead,
this is what
say
I
it.
well, this is what I think is important because, I'm gonna use Willie because we were having this
Willie.
conversation yesterday. Poor Willie, to hearing me talk about her. But we were having this conversation yesterday about a person that she has who is a coworker who is a Trump supporter. And she was having a conversation about something that really just made sense, and the woman still just was not getting it. She was still Well, we were talking about, Rob Reiner and Michelle,
Yeah,
and his wife Michelle, and she tried to compare it to Charlie Kirk. To say, well, it's sort
really,
of even, the way that people pay attention to it. So,
right.
so my point is that we have to keep talking about these things. It may not be that person who gets the message, but as I keep on saying, we have to find somebody else, and we have to make up that vote somewhere else because we may not get it. So you have to figure out, well, I have to cancel that vote out, find
Right.
somebody else. But the point that I'm trying to make is we have to talk about these things out loud, because if we don't, people will still walk around with the same framing that that woman had, that it was even, the same things that we're saying about Rob Reiner is the same things that people said about Charlie Kirk. And it's not. They're
It's
apples and
not.
oranges. But
Exactly.
unless somebody brings it to their attention, unless we talk about it, tell the story, relate it, then we're not changing hearts and minds. And when I say hearts and minds, I don't just mean Republicans or MAGA people.
Right.
I'm just talking about regular people who aren't paying attention, because
Right.
we may at some point say we're just never going to get enough of those people, but it's just the regular people, some of them in our family and our friends, and just regular folks who are not paying attention, that we have to tell these stories to.
I think it, like I said, what's great around the holiday, it's like the Christmas story, the Christmas season. I don't know of a more perfect time to actually, talk about it, because I think this week, I think if we can frame it, and what was on my mind, like I said, going into the holiday season, is the story like about the nativity scene and this babe in the manger, where you have uh, these two young people trying to find a place to give birth and to sleep. It's such a vulnerable story, and even like again, if you believe in anything or not, it's a really story about what happens everywhere across the world, trying to find shelter, trying to live your life, and then trying to then after that, flee political violence and all that. So what I think it's a story, and what I like what James Tallarico, the congressman running for Senate, loves to bring up this kind of to turn the Christian stories into learning situations for people who purport to be a Christian. These MAGA people say they're religious, yet they twist the religion, and so when you look at immigrants, they're locking them up, the hatred, the fear. But the Christmas stories are really a story about vulnerability. So I think when we look at framing and narratives, again, when you see everywhere this story being celebrated, some churches are actually putting cages around the nativity scene. They're really strongly using this time of year to really point out really how we do treat the stranger, how our Constitution has been created to, protect people, no matter who you are, where you were born. If you're in America, you're supposed to be safe. So what the heck? It's really when you're sitting around trying to talk to people, bring that up. Hold hands in a circle, talk about it. And, I think it's the time when it's vulnerability, it's not political, it's not judgment, it's not Democrat, Republican, it's really like it's a story, it's the stranger, it's how we treat people. And I think because it's such a vulnerable story, that it is the time where we can really bring it up, that and I don't know what you think about that, but that's where I was when I think about everything is political, every conversation, dinner conversation, but there's a way we can talk about it, and it kind of confronts people's minds like, okay, so where are you with this? Are you
Yeah, I think for some people, they might find out that some of the folks in their families are really cruel and hateful. So
yeah,
that
wait, it's so when you put the pink elephant gift and they give
that'd
you
be
the
really sad. But I do
yeah,
think that you can have a conversation that says, you know, I don't want us to have a horrible conversation, but here's
yeah.
when someone says, "What are you thankful for?"
Oh,
You
yeah.
get to say, "I'm thankful that we're here together, but my heart is sad for folks who are not able to be together," because no matter what you believe, I think
Right.
that we all believe that people should be comforted and people should have freedom, and that we should not demoralize and dehumanize people.
Yes.
So I think it's probably the way that you have the conversation versus browbeating somebody. You can have it that way. But I do think that there has to be some bravery in terms of us feeling okay to speak our truth about what's actually happening. And I think it's just a matter of where you are. People have to keep their jobs. People have to feed their family. So they have to be very conscientious about that. But I think when you're with your family,
Right.
there's a place that you get to draw a line about what you believe it is to be a decent human being and what you believe to be the things that we ought to be comfortable talking about, even though it's uncomfortable because it might cause some people to sort of see themselves in the mirror and they might not be very happy with the reflection that they see.
Yes, no doubt. So I'd like to, if we want to, we can switch up gears unless you have anything more to talk about, because I was thinking about, that we talk about dignity can't be conditional. I was thinking about, I don't know if you caught the interview with Michelle Obama with John Capert, if you caught that interview, what you thought about that.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty amazing. So I loved it. I already had the book, and
Do
so
you really?
yeah, I did. I
What is the
ordered the.
book called? What is it
It's
called?
called The Look. It's called The Look, and it's
Oh,
a big
look.
table book, and it's big and it's beautiful, and it's fantastic. And I'm just going to say this: President Obama came out with his list of books
Yes.
that and he has Beth Macy's book as his number one book to read for this year. So I was like really impressed that we already
Oh,
had her on our show.
that was Paper Girl.
Yeah, Paper Girl,
And
exactly. Yeah.
she's number 8 on Obama's read list was 1929, and that book I really wanna read because I like that young economic he's the is it oh, I'm blanking. Somebody tell me in the chat who wrote 1929. He's on the Power Lunch. He does the economics. Is a young guy. I'm just blanking on his name. Anyways, how about that? And why I brought up the dignity, when I thought about the Kennedy Center, I really put Obama in this dignified presidential space in my mind. I think about who's not on the Epstein file list, everybody. Who's not on
Ah,
it? Huh? Who's not on
ah.
it? President Obama. And Michelle, let me just go on a rant for 1 second. He's not on it. Okay. He wore a tan suit. This is the man to me that upheld what a family is like in America. What a first family, the dignity that they brought into that White House, the moral clarity on the tradition to be preserved by this first family, this first Black family that entered the White House. And you have Trump, just trashy Trump, and then Melania just talking about her underwear drawer today. I mean, or was it yesterday? It was so weird. Anyways, I wanted to talk about a little bit that because I was thinking about that dignity, the Obama legacy, of course, the double standard, but Michelle Obama and that real personal story, and you get a look at her talking about vulnerability. So yeah, let's go into that. I just wanted to really just show that double standard and the contrast, can't the contrast of these two families and everything being out there about the Epstein files. I just have to say, we didn't have that under Obama. That he's not on that list. He's nowhere near it. How about that? And
So
saying,
so here's what I would say, and I don't know that lots of people know this. I remember having dinner with a girlfriend a few years well when President Obama was still in office, and it was just about the end of his term, and I said to her, I just will be so glad when this is all over. And she's like, why? And I said, because I am so tired of seeing the viciousness
yeah,
of what this president and this first family is being treated. And it was because of all the double standards. I just feel like there were certain times when President Obama was just it felt humiliating for me. So when the Professor Gates, that whole incident when he was
oh yeah.
arrested at his own home, and
Mhm.
then President Obama said the police acted foolishly, and we had to go through this whole big thing because everybody was upset
Gosh, I
because
forgot it. They sat down, you mean
yeah, they had to
after?
sit down and have a meeting, all because
Mhm.
he said the police acted foolishly. And
Yeah,
so I just felt like this administration that we revere, all the things that they had to go through, and then
yes,
looking at this regime, and people are sitting quietly and not wanting to talk about the crazy that is happening all around us, and the contradictions that are happening all
yes,
around us, the how unsafe we are, and how we all wonder if safety nets and just things that you have worked for, in terms of healthcare, in terms of just are you going to be able to get a vaccine, everything that affects our lives today, we are wondering if those things are going to be there. And yet, back to the premise of this conversation, we don't wanna talk about politics, but everything that we are centered on today, our safety, the way we live is
right.
centered on politics.
Yeah, I mean, you even this weekend, we had conversations around healthcare, who's getting it, who's not, who's I mean, it's real, and so to just where you live, where you breathe, where, breathing air, clean air, dirty air, what dirty water, it's all political. Everything we do, what we eat, it's all goes back to what a government or what responsible public servants are doing to kind of govern a populace. And I think about President Obama and just the kind of how he modeled public service, like, and respect for the office and the policy receipts of trying to affordable health care, right? And expanded that coverage. And when I think about the DACA, uh, what he passed with DACA, I was in school then and we were studying that law. He had to do what he could do because he couldn't get it passed after losing the majority in the House. But yeah, just that it really makes a difference how we vote, how we participate, who we elect. And then now, because all of this is sort of upended, it's really how we really have conversations with people, because every gathering and right now you can't leave politics out of it. And if you're trying to make people comfortable, you're not doing right by your neighbor. I think that it's our job to really talk about it in a way that brings people along, though. I really believe we can. And that's why I'll go back to that whole thing, return to the story of the holidays. It is a frame up that works. And then with the Epstein files going on, you can sort of just make a few digs at people going, yeah, look, wonderful President Obama. Now you have this scandal. This guy is one scandal after another. But why I wanted to bring it up was really the book and the look, and about this amazing woman who I think Michelle Obama, what she had to deal with. So what were your sort of takeaway when some of the high points of that conversation that really struck you?
So one of the things that I thought was really important in this conversation is every single thing that she did was well thought out. And
Right.
every single thing that she did was to say, this is important in terms of what President Obama is working on, and I don't need to be a distraction. So whatever I do, it can't be about a distraction. And I thought what was really interesting was when she talked about when she came back for the unveiling of the portrait and she wore braids. And so it was important to her to be able to do that
Right.
because hair for Black women is a really big issue. And what was so interesting to me is that there was a podcast, and the podcaster was really berating Michelle Obama, saying that she's trying to tell white people what they should be doing and blah, 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 blah. And he just was going on. And then all the folks who were commenting were, oh, she's a racist. She's this, she's that. And I thought to myself, well, I had to comment, even though I know I shouldn't, but I had to. So I did go in there and I commented and said, the real racist is you. Because you guys have been so concerned about understanding, talking about woke. If you had anything about being woke, you know that you shouldn't be having this conversation. And so I just went on and
Yeah.
just said, because you have no idea what you're talking about. And I just had to do that. But the point was, she said that she can do that now because she has leverage. And, and
Yes.
and what I thought was so important, she said, wear the hair that keeps your job.
Interesting.
And she
Where
said
they
that because
where
wear the hair that keeps your job, because what
Mhm.
she is acknowledging is, she says, "I'm okay. I'm, doing my thing. I'm not working for
Right.
anybody. I'm doing my own thing." Because at the end of the day, just like I'm saying about these conversations, these
Right.
political conversations, is I recognize that people's jobs and lives, they have to be able
Right.
to protect those things. So when you're not in a position where you have leverage, you have to be able to, keep what's happening. If you're not the person who owns the company, who, especially in this environment, if we were
Right.
talking about another administration, that'd be one thing. But we're talking about this environment, which is a very different environment. And you've got to go to work. And we know what's happening with Black women and work right now. We have hundreds of thousands of women out of work because of what they've done to the federal government and because of what they're doing around diversity, equity, inclusion, even though Black women aren't the ones who have benefited from it the most. But my point is,
Yes.
as she said, wear the hair that keeps your job. So I thought that was something that I thought was really important and critical for women to talk
So
about.
what you is saying too is just like, look, hair is political. Everything
Yeah,
is political.
everything is political.
That is it. I mean, I think when I was teaching when in my 20s, I remember talking to young people about their hair, and then you get into this, especially here I am, a young white woman working, and predominantly everybody in my class was black, and to tell them about, okay, you had braids or not braids. I didn't get into it too much, but I kind of knew better, like in a way. But I could tell you that it did impact jobs, because even if you take Michelle Obama or Obama, you're a most decent, moral person in the world. And it doesn't mean you're going to be treated as legitimate. You're not going to, it doesn't mean you're going to get the job. And it's all this kind of stuff that we talk about right now. You know, respectability doesn't protect you from racism, but because the target was never sort of like your behavior, the target was belonging. And I think that even with hair and that being, I thought that the show that Michelle Obama talking all about look and hair, we usually would criticize because it's like a female thing. Oh, let's talk about hair. Let's talk about clothes. And why do we do that just to women? But I'm saying to you, that was the most interesting, powerful conversation, because hair and clothes are political,
Yes, they are. And I make this point
right?
because I know there would be folks who would disagree with what she said about wear the hair that keeps your job. Unless you're ready to go through a lawsuit, unless
Real,
you're ready to, unless you want to
right?
go through a lawsuit and all that stuff. I'm just saying at this moment,
Yeah,
where you're not in control, you have to think about that. But and I thought it was important for her as she was
right.
talking about the freedom that she has today. She says, "I have that freedom because I have leverage. I have this is where I am." But I remember when I worked in corporate America, and we would always say, "Bring your whole self to work." And I would say to some people, "There's some of it you need to leave home." So, 'cause you bring some of that to work,
It's
you're
so
gonna be not
true.
working.
You're
And
like,
so,
no, no,
yeah, you're gonna need leave some home. But
yeah.
I know we're digressing here, but
I
that
but it
was
makes me
really.
laugh. I know, but it's true though.
Let me see how you're doing my time
I have
here.
a couple minutes, but I'm going to say I love Liv just having this conversation, because it does bring some joy into this whole thing. But it is so true what we're talking about. So so in the sense of what else is on your mind as we go to wrap up.
Yes. So
Couple-
so I wanna sort of end this with where we started in terms of change the conversation for 60 seconds around,
Yeah,
being able to have this political conversation. I always like to bring a little bit of history in because I'm trying to be so much better because I felt like we've missed so much. But Mary, McLeod Bethune would always say there were 2 things that were important, the ballot and the book. But what she also said was that you should talk about politics, every day.
in less
Uh,
than 60 seconds.
yeah, it was probably more than 60 seconds, but my point is, even back then she passed away in 1955, but she was part of, President Roosevelt's Black Caucus. But this
Mhm.
is what this was her saying. We're talking about everything is political, how important politics is. Even back then, as they were fighting for the right to vote and women's rights and all of those things, she said then you should be having this conversation every single day. So everything is politics, everything is political. We just have to get better and bolder at being sure to bring those conversations to bear.
Yeah, well, we'll end on that good note. I do agree, and I hope that coming into this week, I know we're only a couple days away from Christmas Eve, and then we'll be into New Year's Eve, and we're getting ready. We're going to be doing our Armchair Pundits every Sunday at 7, but we'll be back January 9th with our show. But I just want to wish everybody just a lot of love for as we head into the season, whether it's Hanukkah or whatever you're celebrating, but to use your time wisely. If it's just 60 seconds, use it to start a conversation. And I think it's time to take those values we purport to have and really make people live up to them. Like, oh, really? Hmm, you know?
Well, I just wanna say, the same happy holidays, however you wish to celebrate it. Get some rest. We got so much to do, and I'm just so grateful for all the folks who joined tonight. So we'll
Yeah, me
send some
too.
clips and we'll do a write-up, but I'm just really grateful and thankful for
Yeah.
everybody.
Especially I see Harriet here and Chuck Moran and a couple of our favorites. And it's good to see always Chuck Moran in the room and our friends and Harriet. And it's just great to see Willie. But everybody be back. We'll be back soon. We'll be back next week. We'll be doing our show even from the beach. I'll be there.
Okay.
All right,
Good
bye.
night.
I think hold on, I gotta end it. I gotta click that button.